I'm Andrew. Do I need to say what I play, or?
Oh yeah, and your last name too, because people.
Oh, mine's Andrew James Nicholson, and I play bass guitar.
Middle names are okay.
Yeah.
Alexander Turner. I play guitar and sing and voice. Now I'm looking at the picture.
I'm Jamie, and I play guitar.
If you could just sort of describe the town just a little bit of where you live. You're sitting here drinking Starbucks. Are there Starbucks back in Sheffield?
Yeah.
There's Starbucks everywhere, I think.
Yeah.
So describe your town. You say it's a city.
Yeah.
It's been through it.
For steel. Not anymore though. Wait, it still says there's still Avesta's saying is we still make as much steel as we always had.
Yeah,
but obviously
it doesn't take as many people to make it.
And how about bands? What bands is it famous for?
Pulp.
Okay.
And there were a big electric movement, I believe,
Like
on Warp
Human League and all this
Records,
sort of thing.
which we don't really know much about, but people always tell us about it.
Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Def Leppard?
ABC.
From Sheffield? Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Now, what is it like? You guys say you're saying that the electronic scene is not your kind of scene. Is that are there like dance clubs and then there are clubs where there be bands?
Well,
what's the music
we're famous for Gatecrasher as well.
Gatecrasher.
I don't know.
No, not a clue. Tell me.
Gatecrash, like hard house. I believe it is house music. Well, like
Raving.
rave.
Okay.
But we were like.
We missed all that. Like we missed
Yeah.
Human League because
We were 7.
we were like,
Human League. We weren't born.
We weren't even like
We went around.
sperm.
Then we missed like. What else did we miss? Then like we missed the Gatecrasher
I wasn't
scene.
saying Human League is sperm.
No.
So the
Well,
Gatecrasher
right.
scene is the other word would be rave. We would know
yeah,
the
like
same
rave
same
music,
idea.
but he got really famous in.
Yeah.
He got really famous in England and started having them all, and like, but it started off in Sheffield.
Did your folks listen to that stuff?
No, before it was like when we were growing up. You'd listen to CDs. You'd
Yeah.
like have Gate because it was cool. Like all your cousins are good at Gatecrashing and and stuff like that.
What
Our older brothers.
what is the club scene like? I mean, are there different sorts of clubs for different sorts of music, or there is. Describe it.
There ain't many indie clubs. There's only one, and that's like the Lead Mill. Oh no, there's Plug.
Two now, but one's...
The word indie club would that be like the 930 club? Is
No,
that
like the I don't know, the club, the club that
Where you
plays
like
good
have it-
music.
Where you'd have a indie discotheque.
indie disco. But that's not always a good club. So I'm a strong believer in if you have a good night, you can have a good night anyway, can't you? But it's better if you've got good music on.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes you don't want to hear.
Sometimes you
There's
just
no way.
sometimes you want to go and listen to 50 Cent.
I rarely want to do that, but
I
mean,
rarely do as well.
sometimes-
Well, what did you listen to when you were 17? Could you get to?
when we were kind
Yeah.
of getting into like
Yeah,
guitar
you could
bands and
get
stuff, and like they were like a lot of his friends had started having like bands, like playing in bands, like
Yeah.
and then, well, kind of people that we'd met at that time, like they were bands we used to go and watch, like just
names.
good friends of ours.
Any-
Well, there was a band called Milburn that are still around, but like then they were just sort of getting together and like playing covers and stuff like that. But they're really good now.
Is
like,
there any
but-
kind of aesthetic that you'd put on the kind of music that's coming out of?
There's some
Where
really
you
good bands. There's a lot of bands coming out of Sheffield. at the
Name
moment.
some other names of bands.
Like
we should-
Milburn, Long Blondes, Harrison's, Bromhead's Jacket, there's Reverend.
guy called Stoney.
There's-
Really, like like that's quite like different. Like the all them ones we mentioned, some of them are like guitar bands. They're quite like none of them are really like the other ones. I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, Milburn and stuff, but even them are not like getting like
Yeah.
their own sort of, like Milburn getting their own. Everyone's like got their own sort of thing because no one wants to be like the other bands.
That's
Like,
it, it's
no
not
one wants to be
much of
like
a
us
scene.
now, whatever.
It's not much of a scene, so I think like Sheffield bands now, I would imagine the worst question is, so the Arctic Monkeys,
Yeah.
and I would imagine every Sheffield band gets that and they fucking hate it because I would. So I bet everyone tries to sound. It's like it's not much. It's not a scene. It's just like kids like it's just good music, and I think it.
Is there anything that ties the bands together if it's not
Sheffield?
a scene? Yeah, just Sheffield. Just there's not that many places to
Yeah,
go, and you
Friends
want to
as
go
well.
out. And
Friends and like all the bands are pretty young as bands, like all 20.
Like there was a
You
time
know,
like last year before there were like kind of a spotlight on it where we were just all like hanging around and like just playing gigs and stuff like in Sheffield. Before so I know like like it were a thing, if you know what I mean. And so we were just like mates before it all happened. Like we don't see each other that much like now because we're in Washington. Everyone's like on tour. Or
even when you're at home.
I think it must be like tumbleweeds in Sheffield now. Or is there like new bands coming through? I don't even know. Like, but
when you go back home, where would you play?
We play Leadmill. We also play like we played the Octagon last time on the Enemy tour, which is not a very good venue. It's like Sheffield's missing like a 3,000, 4,000 venue, but they did up the City Hall, just like, which is a great building in Sheffield, and we wanted to play it, but they
one of ambitions were to play it, but
they won't take seats out for it. Like they used to have removable seats, like I think like Sex Pistols, and everyone's played there, and then they've redone it up and given it a paint job and that. And they wouldn't take seats out, so we couldn't do it because it'd just get wrecked and someone would end up paying themselves for seats. And
a lot of times in bands who played the 930 Club, let's say 20 years ago, you'd see an audience of people who were moving like crazy and thrashing about for music that would be the kind of energy that you have. These days I come to the club and I see people standing up and they've sort of got their hands in their pocket, either impress me or they just soak it in.
We don't get
What's
that
it like that?
We don't get that in England very much.
What
in England here? It's crazy. It really is. Like sometimes you have to stop playing because crowds are that some follow like hundreds of people.
Are people flying across, being held up by one another, and that sort of thing?
In all our early shows before we kind of had to have barriers and stuff, it were always about like it was just a room full of people, including like us on stage, just all sort of having it and that, and it were all about like there were no sort of definition, like there were no like kind of blockade or anything.